I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is now 7:02. If everybody can please rise for a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If everybody could please remain standing, I'd like to take a moment of silence for the recently departed Harry Valentine Jr., a moment of silence for President Jimmy Carter, and also for the victims of the California wildfires. Thank you. So can we do roll call, please?
Councilperson Salvador.
Present.
Councilman Migliorino.
Present.
Councilwoman Hibby. Present. Supervisor Piscotty.
Present. Present.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we're gonna do something we haven't been doing at our past meetings since the beginning. So it's gonna take us a little bit, and I beg for your patience, but we are gonna review our minutes and just give some brief changes to them and hopefully approve a first round of minutes for this meeting. So going back to the last approval of minutes was the November meeting. So we're gonna look at the special meeting on November 28th. And Sue, are you looking to no changes?
Yeah.
Okay. Regarding the December 2nd tree lighting, there's a vote, but the roll call is unspecified. So if we could please get those identified for votes, because minutes in general should reflect
Or December 2nd.
for the November 28th special meeting. And otherwise, were there any other changes that any other board members noted?
Not for me.
Not for me.
For the December 7th meeting, there's no approval of the previous minutes. And then during the discussion of the agreed upon procedure or audit, it's labeled as public comment. And I believe that it looks like it's verbiage from the former supervisor, but we just have to identify that because it's listed as public comment when discussing the agreed upon procedure for the audit. If you look back to the minutes, it says public comment, and then there's like the whole discussion about the agreed upon procedure.
Okay.
On January 2nd, there's no attendance recorded at the reorg.
I don't know what that means.
There's no attendance of council at the meeting.
Okay. January
9th, I didn't have any changes. On February 15th, the attorney for the town, Stephen Mogul's name is spelled wrong. My name is repeatedly spelled pizza and lotto, which I understand. But let's see how it's spelled.
I spelled it wrong.
Yeah, it's pizza and lotto. It's fine. It happens to be since I think in kindergarten, but we're good.
Could have been like the AI.
We just need to identify the content for the alcohol policy as defined by the Uland Fire Department. We just have to get a name attached to it, like who the letter was generated from. It just mentions the Uland Fire Department. We just need, I believe it was the acting chief at the time, but if we could just get him noted there. Then any changes for the March meeting? April was missing, May was missing. So we still need to approve those at the next meeting. May 31st, there's a special meeting, no changes noted. And then we also are still waiting for June and July. in the August meeting, there's public comment that, that reflects like, is a litigious in nature. So I asked that it be struck, from the record, and I can go over that with you.
I would go over that with
I
you
was gonna say,
and Javed.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say, we can do that offline, because it's litigious in nature and it violates our rules of decorum that we're setting forth. So we'll clean that up between the three of us. Okay,
Just,
and then,
I'll speak to you about that more in depth, Javed, yeah.
okay, and, yeah, so we're waiting for, again, June, July, September, October, November, December, and January reorg minutes. And so,
Well, you can't, the reorg and the public hearing are just about done, and I have 14 days to put them on.
yeah,
I
so,
want to send it to you and the board members,
okay,
to look at the public hearing minutes,
okay,
and, the reorg is for you. So,
okay, yeah, so hopefully we'll get into the practice of approving the month before at the meeting,
Yeah.
following.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's it. So do I have a motion to approve the changes in all the minutes just specified?
I'll make that motion. I also submitted changes in writing to Sue
yes,
previously.
Laura brought me in, what she had.
Okay. Okay, do I have a second?
Failed motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, I'll put, hold on, all through, or all in favor? Aye,
Aye.
all opposed?
No.
You wanna discussion?
Nope.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any discussions? So moved. Okay. So we have recently, at the end of 2023, the previous town board had labeled something previously as an audit. But when we spoke to our accounting firm, Cooper Arias, it was actually what was labeled in that public comment section, which was an agreed upon procedure. So there was no audit ordered by the previous town board. It was an agreed upon procedure for one specific staff member. And so we've come into our findings of the agreed upon procedure. And the good news was they didn't find any, anything nefarious. There was a couple of mistakes made, but it was just tacked up to human error. But probably thinking about like the nature of what's transpired over the course of last year, several accusations made by the public. There's always this thing with small towns where, chatter becomes the record. And I want to protect both the previous board and for future involvement from everybody that may want to run for a town board position. We've heard a lot of discussions recently about how people are scared to come to meetings and they're scared to get involved in the town because their personal business may come up for a public referendum. They may, be slandered at the meetings, and it's a really uncomfortable position, I think, for our community and a community as small as ours. But I would also like to report that this is nothing special, and these actions are not special. They're actually very commonplace in today's very divided world that we live in politically. So that being said, we are going to agree on we're going to be presented with rules of procedure and decorum for our meetings. We've taken this draft from Middletown, just published these as rules that appeared in Hudson News last week. And also we received a copy from Coshecton, who's already adopted these rules. So that's what you all were given. I don't want anybody to ever feel like this is not their home, or that they shouldn't be comfortable here, or that they're going to get into some sort of spat with their neighbors here, or they're going to be personally attacked, or their personal business is going to be on record. There's no place for that in a small town, and it's unacceptable, and it will not be tolerated moving forward. And so with that, I would like to pass the mic over to our new deputy supervisor who has been researching this for us.
I don't have a lot for you besides what I gave to you, but I do want to just give you a little bit, as a lifelong resident and your newly elected councilwoman. I've seen the growing division within this town community, often intensified by the unruly behavior, as well as the personal attacks that take place here at our public meetings. The rule of procedure will focus on establishing clear and effective and transparent procedures that enhance public engagement. We want everybody to be able to come in here and feel like they can voice their opinion without going home and finding themselves on social media, which we can't really help. But what we can help is the way people are treated within this room. Transparent procedures that enhance public engagement. By examining our existing rules, we can make improvements that reflect the needs of our community and promote a respectful, inclusive environment where all voices are valued and constructive dialogue is encouraged. Therefore, I motion to create a subcommittee to review and update the rules of procedure for the town of Highland. Do I have a motion?
Yes, so it was proposed by the deputy supervisor to devise a subcommittee to agree on compliance for rules of procedure and decorum. Do I have a motion?
Before we move, can we open for discussion?
Sure.
How many people are you looking for on the committee and what's the timeline and the commitment?
So I see this being very fast. I mean, I think it should coordinate with what actually Councilperson Burrell just sent out a update to our employee handbook. And so I kind of see these two working in tandem, hand in hand. So if you wouldn't mind, Laura, if we could put you on that committee to
Sure.
work with Sonia.
No problem.
Because she's done this part of the research and I think it corresponds with our employee handbook.
Yeah.
So if you guys could present your findings to adopt at the February meeting, if
Okay.
possible, I think that would probably be the best timeline.
Okay,
Do we have a handbook that?
Yes, we've been working off of the 2012 handbook. which I believe is-
16, it was 2016, it was 2016.
2016 was the last updated.
Yeah, that's the
Um,
one you gave me from the files.
That's the same one.
Yep, that's it.
So that's not an updated one.
The updated version is in draft form and I've asked for notes from the rest of the personnel committee, as well as we're going to take a pass by with Java just for legal language to make sure we're crossing all our Ts,
Okay.
and then it's going to get shared.
I misunderstood.
with the
I
whole
thought
board.
that it was
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's an actual document
Yeah.
now.
So do you accept the nomination?
I absolutely will happy to help. Yeah,
I think it'll just save everybody a lot of work.
no problem.
So do I have a motion to approve the creation of this committee for compliance procedure for rules of procedure and decorum?
I'll make that motion.
For a second,
I'll second.
okay, all in favor,
Aye.
All right,
all opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Also, part of decorum and part of what's been going on in our meetings is a lot of accusations of fiscal impropriety, of not following rules within the town. There's been many slanderous and litigious inferences made both at public meetings and on social media, unfortunately. And it's getting to a point of a litigious nature, and that will be dealt with independently and directly. But I do want to exonerate all previous town boards and all current public servants. And with that, I would like to put out a request for proposal for a full forensic audit of the town records and all contracted departments within the town. I want to put this out as a request for proposal. So once we get those numbers in, we can see what set accounting firms would come back with in terms of auditing, how far back we can go. If we just focus on contractual departments, if they recommend just certain departments to give us those numbers. But I really do want, previous public servants, present public servants, and future public servants to be exonerated and to know that their work will be transparent and that their work will not be attacked. And there will be no inferences made moving forward that scare people away from town hall. It's a very dark trajectory for our small town. I would like to make a motion to issue an RFP for a forensic audit. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
My,
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Do I have any public comment on the agenda? Only on the agenda? Okay, thank you. Mr. Joe Barnes, you're up.
Okay, since our December meeting, we've been out chipping brush from the November storm. Still. We've been doing vehicle maintenance repairs. Snow and ice removal. We've been out 13 times since the last meeting, 10 fallouts. And since the last meeting, the town received another $84,950 in chips. Which brings us to $284,950 in CHIPS money for road improvement.
Thank you. I do want to read a letter that came from the Highway Department, dated January 7th. Dear Supervisor Pizzolato, attached is the completed 284 form, which represents proposed expenditures for road maintenance and paving for the town of Highland for the year 2025. The proposal is based upon the receipt of funds from the CHIPS capital reimbursement program, as well as the town's budgeted amounts. Paving projects have been estimated with CHIPS monies included. Without these funds, some paving projects will not be able to be completed in 2025. Costs are estimated due to the fact that updated quotes for paving will not be available until the spring, when current oil prices are available to the paving companies. Please feel free to contact me with questions and concerns. So basically, the Highway Department has prepared said report that Joe would like to issue for the application for CHIPS monies, and we just need to sign this 284 form. So do I have a motion to sign the 284 form on behalf of the Highway Department?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. That leads us to our buildings department and committees.
Correspondence first.
I'm sorry.
Can I do the correspondence?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I guess we'll take a break for
I'm
correspondence.
sorry, I just want to do the correspondence for the emergencies. For the Utica Fire Department, this is for the month. Calls, personnel hours was 29.32, drills 18, meetings and trainings 46. Miscellaneous 5 with a total of 98.32. Total hours for the year of 2024, 1,526.05. For emergency calls, drills 1398.71, meetings and trainings 98.42, miscellaneous 260.37, with a total of 4,166.95 for the year of 2024. Highland Lake Fire Department. Calls 3275. This is for the month of December. Drills 60 hours, work nights 24, training classes 0, with a total of 116.75. Highland Ambulance. 26 calls, 234 hours, 16 standbys, 160 hours, 15 mutual aid calls, 1 meeting, 2 drills, 442 man hours total. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, next, it's our buildings committee, which is have been updated. It was formerly with Tom Migliorino and with Laura Burrell. Our new deputy supervisor is now on the buildings committee. First up, we'll discuss our property acquisition, and Java will lead us through the secret review.
So as part of any action that the town board needs to take, you have to consider the environmental impacts under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. When this proposal was first put on the table, there was a SECRA Part 1 environmental assessment form, which I'll refer to as EAF prepared, and that's, I know, in the record. What remains is a secret EAF part 2 and a part 3. It's a relatively simple process because this is an unlisted action. We don't have to do the full-blown environmental review. So what I'll do is I will go ahead and propose 11 questions to you, which is based on that form. I'll ask the question. If there's discussion that needs to be had about that question, go ahead and have it. But at some point, I'll need to hear from you whether you agree, and your answers are one of two things: whether the impact has no or small impact, or whether the impact I identify is a moderate or large impact. Just
Would you like
very,
us to all answer in unison or?
well, if you need to discuss, but if you shake your head, I'll acknowledge that as well. Note that of these 11 questions, if you identify all 11 as no or small impact, the next thing you'll do is you'll make what's called a secret determination of significance and declare this a negative declaration. And that what you're saying in essence is that there are no impacts, significant adverse impacts, and it does not require the preparation of the environmental impact study. If the seeker review is done, we'll move on to the next step. However, if on this part you identify at least one moderate to large impact, your part 3 analysis is going to be a little bit different. If we do identify a large moderate impact, we'll need to explain what that impact is and how it's going to be dealt with. And if you still find that there's a concern for that specific impact, then you're going to likely have to find that you're going to prepare an environmental impact statement. So before we get there, that's just kind of where things are going. But before we get there, I'll go ahead and read you the 11 questions and we'll figure out if there are any moderate or large impacts. So question 1 is, will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of the use of land?
Could you repeat that, please?
Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land?
How do you categorize intensity?
For example, you can have a situation where you have a small gas station that gets 10 customers a day, but you're looking to expand it. All of a sudden, you're going to have 1,000 customers a day. The intensity of the use has increased in that example.
And just for the record too, the Ken Ellsworth's plan allots for 8 parking spaces, so it's not going to be, a mega parking lot with this sort of like phase 1 of acquisition.
He told me a higher number.
Yeah, he wanted to get, it's a minimum of 8 is like what the site plan allows for. And so he's gonna get together with Ed McAndrew to discuss like all of the potential for egresses and things like that. Ed McAndrew already gave it a pretty positive declaration, which I can read after we go through this process.
So let's break that question down. So will it result in a change of use? So the answer to that, it's going from right now residential use to apartment. So that's yes.
Yeah.
Really, the question is the intensity of the land use and whether or not that overall impact is no impact, small impact, or large, medium, moderate, or large impact. So talk about intent of the use at this point. Knowing that it's intended to be, right now it's a residential facility, how much it's being used, how often people are there, the amount of traffic going in or out, and then compare that to the proposed use, which is at minimum 8 spot parking lot. And knowing that if that's no, small, moderate, or large impact.
I would say small.
Small.
Yeah, fine.
Small impact.
And just for the record too, it's mixed use commercial right now.
Mixed use.
Which how it's being-
Yeah, it had retail.
Pardon?
It had retail
Yeah,
formerly.
yeah.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
No.
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 Will the proposed action have an impact on environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? This one, when we prepared the EAF, it was prepared using the DEC's website. And so when you plot in the parcel number, it identifies whether or not the parcel is in a critical environmental area. And in the EAF part 1, it was not identified as a CAA, so the answer to that actually would be
No.
No.
Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkways?
No.
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 Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy as it fails to incorporate reasonable available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities?
No.
No.
Will the proposed action impact existing public or private water supplies,
No.
public or private wastewater treatment facilities?
No.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or other aesthetic features?
No.
Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, for example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, or fauna?
No.
Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, drainage problems?
No.
Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
No.
So those were the 11 questions. All 11 questions were answered either no impact, or there was one question that was a small impact. So your part 3 analysis, because we didn't identify anything large or moderate, we don't necessarily have to go into detail on any of those issues. So at this point, because you haven't identified the potential for at least one significant adverse environmental impact, question is do you still want an environmental impact statement prepared? The regulation says you have to find at least one significant environmental impact to require the preparation of an EIS.
No.
So no. So then would we need a motion for a negative secret or negative declaration?
Do I have a motion for a negative secret declaration? Do I have a motion for a negative secret declaration? I'll second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. I wanted to share 2 more support materials. One is from Nick Andrew, who works for Sullivan County Public Works. He's declared, these are just his declarations that he can make on his initial pass of the project. They've never reviewed this property at 564 Route 55, it was reported at the last meeting that they did, but we look back in the records and they've never reviewed it or considered it for any sort of declaration before. He feels that these proposed spaces at minimum are safer than the current pullout spaces that are often utilized by the bank across the street. He said that the 8 spaces are more than doable in the code and there's the potential for more. And he also likes the fact that there's a controlled intersection within 300 feet so that people coming in and out should be made safer because there's a stoplight. So there won't be, any sort of like people pulling out into traffic without, being either cautious or being stopped at the light. So those were his only mentions of feedback for the first pass. Again, him and Ken are going to get together and see how many spaces they can eke out and then what it would look like if it was extended plan. I also wanted to share with the public that our appraisal came in at 85,000. Again, we bid on this property at 78,000. The last purchase before this one was at 99,000 in 1999. This very lucky owner of the building acquired the property at a very low cost. But I think where this town board sees the value is that we're able to control the narrative and the look and feel and the development of our town. We've been going through our comprehensive plan process, and it's been determined by the majority of the residents that have been participating that we want to keep our commercial spaces in our commercial spaces, that we want to develop and continue to develop where there's already businesses, that we're not looking to develop new business districts in places that are extremely residential, that we're following the natural path pathways of what the town has already declared. And so part of the comprehensive plan is looking for municipal parking spaces, municipal development, and this seems to be in line with it. And the fact that we have grant monies to put towards this project is also kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity, especially for the price that we're getting it for. We feel that it's a good investment for the town in general. I would like to publicly declare that I do not want to use any taxpayer money on the development of a parking lot. I've met with the Sullivan County Planning Commissioner and they have extended the what's called the Rust grants. They've put it back into the consideration. It was solely pulled in by the Sullivan County Land Bank before, so the Land Bank was issuing us the Rust grants. The Rust grants are earmarked for demolition of buildings, or what they call raising buildings. And so this project is estimated at $40,000 for demolition. We would, of course, apply for said grants. Also, and we'll talk about it later on in the agenda, myself, Laura Burrell, and Sonia Kidney will be attending the Association of Towns training and trade show in New York City in February. And part of that is a sort of Grantapalooza, they call it, where you get to walk a trade show floor and talk to all of the New York State agencies. And so this is a big hot button issue, especially for small towns for development. So we'll seek out every grant opportunity. I do not feel that we should be spending taxpayer dollars to build a parking lot. I don't think that that's in line with the values of a small town, nor is it in our budgets. So we have no rush to act on this property. I just want to acquire it and make sure it's within the peripheral of the town. And so we can earmark it to be an investment for the future of our town. Again, this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity is the way I see it, that we have the grant funds, so we don't have to spend taxpayer budgeted money. And we're able to develop, whenever we see fit and when the opportunity strikes. So with that, is there anything else that you'd like to see us do before we carry a motion?
Yeah, just one last item, which was the board was here for the public hearing and listened to public comments. I'd like the board to consider whether any of those comments that were raised were something that you found a significant or substantive question that should be answered, or you're able to make a decision tonight.
I think we talked a lot about parking lot at my business at the last public hearing.
Yeah.
I don't think we talked much about this actually being.
And it's a public need for parking.
Public
Yeah.
One question that I recall and in my notes was the cost of the property and if the town was getting fair value.
Mhm.
That was one, question that I think was important to be answered. And it sounds like, John, you answered that with when you got the appraisal. You've got the appraised value and town's paying less than the appraised value.
Great.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I think the other comment that I found that I thought was substantive was one raised by a board member who talked specifically about how this project was previously considered in some fashion, one way or another. And that it wasn't sure that a parking lot could be built there based on regulatory requirements or permitting requirements.
Mhm.
Has that question been satisfactorily answered for you?
Yes, John made that statement earlier.
Yeah.
From the information he required from Ken Ellsworth.
Okay, from 10
And the commissioner.
And permission.
Yeah.
I didn't in my notes don't have anything additional in terms of the issues that are raised. Does anyone think of anything else?
In relation to issues that were raised, I of course thank the public for coming out to the hearing. There were some really substantive things in terms of what we need planning moving forward to after demolition, what that should look like and how it should go. So I think in terms of phase 2 of developing that property, once we own it, it was super helpful. And, we'd love to hear more on what that space can look like because the town will have ownership over it. But up until this point, to just acquire the building to get to the next step, everything seems pretty good.
For the public's benefit, can you discuss what your proposed plan or something that you wanted to research with the emergency services building in time into that, this kind of system?
Oh, in our emergency building next door here, which is attached to the town hall. Sure. Our emergency building, which is attached to the town hall next door, they have a bathroom in there. And in that bathroom, there's no septic field. It's just a holding tank for the waste. And what happens is it fills up pretty quickly, especially now that the ambulance crew is in there every day. So the septic field for the building that we're purchasing next door is on town property. I believe, and it has to be looked into, we have to have an engineer check it out. We can tie our holding tank into that septic field, and that would solve the problem of having it pumped every 6 months or so. That's all I could say right now.
Without
Yeah,
further,
there's actually one more comment, which was, I do recall in my notes that there was a question raised, why the rush? Why now? Why don't we wait until we have a plan to do the parking lot and then do that? And that's more of a question for me to answer, which is, we're dealing with the purchase of real estate. This parcel, which is adjoining the town hall, is available now. We don't know if it's sold, if it's ever gonna be available, or at what cost. So that, I think, answers that question. The availability is there, it's available to be purchased. And they've agreed on a negotiated price that works within the appraised value and within our budget. So I think that answers that question.
yeah, and also for the public, when we were budgeting what we were gonna make our offer on, we basically backed out the cost of the highway generator. After further like scrutinizing the highway budget, it was determined that they could pay for their own generator, so we didn't have to attribute the emergency ARPA funds that were issued to the town in 2021. For the purposes of the generator, the highway department basically purchased their own generator. And thank you, Joe, for running a really solid department and having some money left over, very rare for a town the size of ours to have funds available like that. So we based backing out those generator costs and the expenditures that were going to be covered by LaBerge, who was our former consulting agency. We are taking those funds out of the New York Class account, our savings account, which is our high yield interest, which was already predetermined at a meeting. And then when we came up and found out that we had more money available, we said, oh, wait, maybe we'll pay for these funds, but we're just going to go back to our originally scheduled plan, which was to pay for it out of our savings from the previous town board, and we're paying for their expenditures because all those were billed in 2024 after 2023. So with that, do I have a motion to purchase the property located at 564 State Route 55?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? So moved.
So moved, in anticipation of this, I did prepare a written resolution.
Do you want me to read that?
If you, did you share it with the board? I'll give copies to the board and we'll summarize it for the board and public. I think that's
I don't have a copy. No.
He wants me to share it with the board. Yeah.
Oh,
You did, just so they have it, and I'll,
oh, you guys don't have a copy?
Nope.
Yeah, just.
No.
He's never given.
alright, so while Sue's making copies, I'll summarize for the resolution.
Can you speak loudly? The printer's going?
Sure, and in part one of the resolution is you're authorizing the town supervisor to consummate the purchase of the property located at 564 State for a cost of $78,000 plus the applicable closing costs and subject to the terms of the contract that was signed between the parties. That the supervisor is authorized to execute any additional documents necessary to bring this property to closing. That the funding will be from the ARPA funds that were previously obligated in November by motion and resolution of this board. That this action of the board, which is the acquisition of real property, is subject to permissive referendum. That we've completed SECRA, which we just did shortly. And that will follow the requirements of permissive referendum in this case. So that's a short, that's actually the full summary of what's in the resolution before you guys.
Thank you, John, for all your extra work on that project. And thank you, Tom, for initiating the contact and Thank you to the public as well.
Thanks,
And
everyone.
thank you to the federal government for giving us the funds to be able to purchase this. And let's just hope there's no more global pandemics that afford us these opportunities again. Okay, with that, we also, we are in receipt of a SAM grant. And that was given to us by, former Assemblyperson Eileen Gunther. We received 2 bids for an architect. One was from an architectural firm. One was from a draftsman, that would require additional signatures and, work to be done on behalf of, the architectural firm that he, is related to. So it was determined by one of our council people that we couldn't entertain that bid because it wasn't provided by an architectural firm when the request for proposal was from an architect. So we walked the property with the one bid that we got, with the buildings committee this Sunday. We encountered some beautiful snakes in the basement, one with a mouse and in the mouth of the snake in the basement. But it was determined that what we're gonna do as we approach, the development of said property is we're gonna take the big swoops into consideration first. We want to make sure that the building is structurally sound. That would be like leveling it out, making sure the foundation is set. Upon further examination, it's determined that the roof needs to be replaced. The floor was the last thing that was really done and done very well, by Mark Bertram about, I think it's about almost 20 years ago now, but he did a really wonderful job on the floor. So that's a non-issue. There are other sections of the floor and the back office that need to be looked at, especially in relation to the leveling of the building. And then the other thing that we really have to look at is the remediation of the stucco on the outside of the building. That's a deterrent for our wonderful snake population that's been living in the courthouse for the past 30 years. Both the stucco and the foundation provide access points for different animals to creep into the courthouse. It's been well documented and reported by the court clerk that a lot of vermin get in there at various times. But in general, it is a wonderful building. It's not on the historic record. There have been improvements made to the building, like vinyl windows, that would probably take it off of, the traditional determination of the historic record. But we're trying to give it all the historical merit that it deserves, but still work within the confines of what our grant is. So we feel very confident, the buildings committee feels very confident that Shadow Architects are the right choice. And it happens to be the only bid that was applicable that we opened up. So we had a really good session with them. Is there anything you wanted to add, Tom or Sonia?
No, we have all bases covered. We're gonna start with the things that need to be repaired first, and we're not gonna go above budget. But that's it. The money we have is what we're gonna work with, so it doesn't cost the taxpayers anything extra.
Yeah, and again, it was $250,000 from Assemblywoman Eileen Gunther's office in the form of a SAM grant. And so with that, we've worked with Eileen Gunther's team, this board has, for the past year. And through our work with Eileen Gunther's team, we've acquired $375,000 in grant funding, $50,000 for the community center kitchen, $250,000 for our courthouse, and another $75,000 for town hall, for tech upgrades and for aesthetic improvements. And so our town at large, when we think about the history of our town and the work that Assemblywoman Gunther has contributed to our small town over here, her district was comprised of parts of large towns in Orange County, as well as Sullivan County. She's been beyond a friend to the community in Highland, and her work has straddled, all political affiliations. She was always revered as one of the most nonpartisan assembly people within the Senate, and her husband Jake before her. So between the two of them, they had over 30 years of service in the seat of assembly. So we're at a huge loss. We have very high hopes for Paula Kay and her work that she'll bring back to our town. I know she's very dedicated to working with the town, and she also worked within Assemblywoman Gunther's cabinet at the beginning, and pretty much is utilizing her full staff. So with that being said, I would like to propose naming and dedication of the courthouse to be named the Eileen Gunther Justice Court. And I don't know if I have a motion for that. Do I have a motion to name the building the Aileen Gunther Justice Court and name only in dedication?
I'll make that motion.
For a second,
I'll second.
okay, all in favor,
Hi.
I,
all opposed? Any abstentions? So moved, so we'll share that honor with her. And invite her down, and hopefully we will get the project complete within the year, and we'll have her down for the ribbon cutting. So that's very exciting. Next up, we have a guest, Jessica Weiss from Growing Souls, who is requesting the town of Highland to work on a DEC application with her. So Jessica Weiss, take the podium, please.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, I know a few of you here. I run a nonprofit called Growing Soul, which stands for Sustainable Opportunities for Universal Learning. We're a legacy project. We worked for 14 years in the Washington DC, Maryland area. Recovering food, teaching people how to build their own food as a legacy to the Quakers who were supporting the enslaved on their way towards freedom. And what we are trying to do is bring communities together around no matter what your neighbors look like or no matter what they believe, everybody deserves to eat and everybody deserves to build a community. So with that, we work with the DEC, taking an environmental look at zero waste as far as our food systems are concerned. So I work with Cornell Cooperative Extension and Liberty, and we've been working with a Single Bite and also with the Catskills Food Hub and Sharon Ferber Social Services. So over the past year, through social services, they've distributed 185,000 pounds of food. Growing Soul, in 3 months, we distributed 24,000 pounds of food. And we had 9,000 pounds of food that ended up having to go to animals. And 3,000 pounds that went to soils. We have an anaerobic digester, which we got from a grant from the DEC that was from the town of Tustin, that we transferred over to Cornell. And what we would like to do is get a third grant from the DEC to continue this work and set up the kitchen at the senior center so that we can collect all of the prepared foods. So we're real good with produce and getting that out, but what we've been really having to struggle with is a Single Bite gives prepared meals to people with children, and Meals on Wheels gives food to people who are seniors. But if you're between 18 and 65 and you need food and you have a job, no matter how small it is, you are ineligible for food. And so what we would like to do is utilize that kitchen to bring in all of the prepared foods from chefs, from caterers, from restaurants. We give them a tax deduction for food donation, so there's a benefit there. And we would create a workforce development program, which is eligible for community service hours for students, provide volunteer hours, and we would basically be repacking all the food that we get and getting them out directly to families. We also offer, maybe once a month, we're talking about that, to have family meals, to barrier-free, again, everybody is welcome. There's no qualification, to get together as a community and kind of have a potluck with whatever's around. Plus, we also our intention is that all of the nutrients that enter Sullivan County, we would be responsible for making sure that none of it goes into the landfill. So with that, we are getting freeze dryer, sort of a proof of concept that the produce goes out to people. We call that the first level of food, which is food with dignity. That goes to the person, they can do what they want with it. Anything that is, has like a hole in it, or it's a little overly ripe, like it dissipates in your hands when you hold it. We want to bring to the kitchen, and I don't know if you're all familiar with pixie sticks or Fun Dip, but kind of crystallized. But instead of it being sugar, it would be raspberry pixie stick or kale or apples. And It's a very easy workforce development program, because all you do is take it and run it through a blender, and freeze dry it. And then we would give those like sachets of those to first responders, to schools, to the hospitals, for anybody who needs shelter in place. And especially in the schools, we want to take all the extra milk, they have tons and tons of milk left over at the end of the month. And we can take that and freeze dry it so that we can make smoothies. And that everybody can just keep them in their classroom, they can have a bundle of it for, 50 people for 3 days worth of food. That you can add to water or to milk and make a smoothie, or you can just.
Hey, Jessica, not to interrupt you, but I do want to get out some other disclosures of your work within our community.
Okay.
So you've been working with the Eldred schools system on the Food Defenders program?
Yeah, so we have a program called Earth Defenders, and we teach how to grow food, how to preserve food, how to share food, and how to recycle food, which we call composting and recycling, because it's a little bit easier to understand. So we have a 6-week program that we're doing with 4-H. And we've been coming to Eldred and working with Kelly Kretschler's class and some of the seniors. We're working in other schools at different age levels. And basically we teach them the art of zero waste and what will break down and what won't, and we take what won't break down and we collect plastics and we sort them and we make little eco art with them. And then we teach them this triage of food. So, and we're in there right now on Friday afternoons.
And then a couple more disclosures too. So part of our grant from Aileen Gunther's office was determined to establish this program as a meal program within our part, what they're calling the southwest part of the county. It was determined by Hudson Valley Gives that we are in a food desert here in Sullivan County, especially in the southwestern part. We don't have the resources of some of the larger towns like Fallsburg, Liberty, Monticello, where there's several food pantries. We do have one really wonderful pantry that's run by someone in this room who I know doesn't want to be called out. She's looking in here. Please don't say my name. So, it's a very successful program. We feed roughly 30 families on a biweekly basis. We get food from the Hudson Valley Gives program on the third Thursday of the month, where they come in and it's more of a shopping experience. And we have over 30 families that come in and engage in the shopping provided by Hudson Valley Gives. So our area is determined that we need a food hub in this part of the county. And so we would share these resources with probably, I'm guessing, Lumberland, potentially Bethel, and obviously for all the hamlets within the town of Highland too. And so what our plan is that we would do a meal for seniors and vets following the senior center meetings. And then we would do another one with families. We've been in touch with the superintendent at the school. She wants to remove the stigma of food insecurities from our school district. A lot of times kids don't want to go to a place where they know poor families go to this place to get food, is like sort of the stigma around it. So she wants to bring any of the prepared food that we do into the school and make it more of a fun, socially based activity. So we'll be bringing the food prep through this program into the school, but for the seniors and vets, that'll be a regular meal program that corresponds with their meetings. We also received a grant from the Sullivan County Youth Bureau for $3,000. So we were able to purchase food from PEX, who gave us discounted food. So we got a real bang for our buck. They were really wonderful to work with. And we also invested $1,500 in Monteleone Gardens for sustainable gardens, future plantings for seasoning of foods and other things like that. So we were able to sort of like predetermine and pre-buy crops that will be grown hydroponically there as well. So we're really excited. I feel like it's a really great basis. Jessica, what is the cost of, or what would be the grant amount that we're seeking?
So I think that it's available for $200,000. And what makes this really special is that it's relatively easy to get grants for stuff, right? We'll give you a shuttle bus. We'll give you a refrigerator, but they never give you money for people. There's never money for gas. There's never money for insurance, right? You get your proper cost. So all this $200,000 can go to get drivers, and that's where the workforce development piece comes in, right? We get the students to intern with us. We're working with SUNY Sullivan to create a program where they get ServSafe certified, and we would do those trainings. So it brings us the money that is. It's like a gift from God. We really have the opportunity to get money in for labor. So we've already pre-qualified for the grant. At this point, they're like, just if you can get everybody behind you, hit send and we can get it, but we need to send it in this week, so. And obviously, if you have any questions at all, we're extremely transparent in what we do. And our organization is like an umbrella organization that we're working with all of the NGOs and the nonprofits and also the farmers and, bringing everybody to the table so people aren't working in silos and they, everybody gets to benefit and work for the community, so.
Thank you. And the first call that we got from Jessica was, I have 300 chickens that I have to get out. Can we bring them someplace in your town? And I said, please don't.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
the piece that's missing, right? Like, we're used to the pantries know how to get their stuff and give it away. What is missing is a kitchen, and it is illegal, so we had a pallet of chickens, we got 400 pounds of chickens offered to us, organic, locally grown chickens. And all we needed to do, they were 10 to a case, and what we needed to do was using gloves, take each one of them out, put it in a plastic bag, so we can hand it to a person, because you can't like have an open box and say, come get it. But you have to have a certified kitchen in order to do that, and we couldn't find anyone to do it, so that's what, by reprocessing, it doesn't mean like making junk food when you think of processed food, it's just packaging and doing that breakdown of work, and again, because it's the senior center and the school's so close, the idea is that we have a mentorship program going and really have this be a multi-generational integrated program.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board about the DC application or any questions for Jessica about the program?
Not at this time.
No,
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the town of Highland as applicant for the DEC grant on behalf of Growing Souls?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you,
very much.
Jessica.
My pleasure, and my phone number is 301 Jessica, if you have any questions.
Wow. Okay, what's your pager number?
That would be it.
Also, I just wanted to also point out that we received a really wonderful proposal from Bari Restaurant Equipment to outfit half of the senior center kitchen upgrades. So all of our equipment can be purchased for $25,000, and that's to turn it into a commercially viable kitchen, which will also help with the rentals we're proposing, a more updated kitchen and one that actually is approved by the health department. So we're really excited to get that in motion. We'll still have $25,000 worth of that grant to make cosmetic changes and to continue to improve the senior center. And our maintenance department has been working with Tom ongoing with the buildings there, and they've been doing a really great job working on the bathrooms and other things before the seniors come back, because they're in a 3-month break right now. So we're trying to get the upgrades done before they go back to the meetings. Did you have anything else for buildings?
that's it for today, John.
Okay. I also wanted to introduce another guest. We have Eric Brown, who would like to give us a presentation on cell phone towers.
So. I'd
Right.
like
Please, please come to the podium. Come to the podium.
Yeah.
If Jessica had to do a UFO.
Can I lean on the?
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever you want.
We have an online audience, so they need to hear.
Hi, my name is Eric Brown. I'd like to propose installing cellular towers and emergency towers to the town, where we would cover the 51 square miles, so there would be cell service and emergency service in the town itself.
So what is your
We-
experience with cellular towers, or what?
My partner has 40 years' experience. I've owned cell towers, I've installed cell towers in Manhattan on a couple of buildings. And it would expand the footprint here of having cell service. All 3 carriers would come on board. with T-Mobile, AT&T and Verizon, and then we'd have to get the municipalities to come in and we would install it onto the towers for emergency services.
What, I guess, what, cost would it be to the town? And, what do you need in order?
So we would need an agreement, an exclusive agreement for X period of time for the installation and the rentals. The cost would be on our side, which would be about 500,000 per tower. Plus the cost of the rental, whoever we're renting the space from, whether it be the town or a private, landlord. And we would,
Where do you propose these towers? To
I'm sorry?
install, where are you proposing to install these towers?
we don't know, we'd have to do a study that would take about 6 months. That would try to cover mainly Route 97.
And
That's
it was-
It's a
important.
disaster.
That's
I mean,
important.
I know that the service in Highland Lake is patchy, but they have pretty decent coverage
They have
along.
service, but along the corridor of 97,
Yeah,
there is no service at all.
and also Uland. there's
Uland,
Service
yeah.
at Uland
Right.
along Beaver Brook and, most of the hamlet, there's
Right.
just no service over there.
Right.
So you're saying there would be no cost to the town?
No cost to the town, and we would turn over part of the revenues from the carriers, about approximately 10% of the revenues, after the cost of the cell towers.
And we would be able to procure additional revenues if one of the towers was put on town property?
Correct. That we'd first go to the town properties first. The last resort would go into private, private sector.
And what's the name of the company that you partner with?
My company is Jackson Springs.
Gas and Springs?
Jackson. We'd be one company.
Okay,
Can we get a proposed location of these towers before we proceed to see exactly?
No, because the investment, that's why we need a period of time and exclusivity while we're doing it, because the cost to figure that out is about $250,000.
so you're saying if we were to give you the permission to start to, prepare a study for us and to get the diagnostics of where the tower should be, that we would sign an agreement with you that would give you exclusivity for procuring placement and then.
Your replacement for X period of time, if we fit in that time frame, then we want an agreement for X amount of years to have the installation.
Okay, and what sort of exclusivity are you looking
Well,
for?
for the-
What's
for the-
what standard?
For the installation period of time, 18 months. For all the approvals, because I'm gonna certainly need from the planning board some approval. And then we want it at minimum of a 25-year agreement.
And that's for the actual towers?
For the actual
25 years.
towers.
And those, for that 25-year agreement, it wouldn't be exclusive to those towers, it would just to say, that would be for the people who house the towers, like that, you would sign an agreement that tower can live there for 25 years?
That can live there for 20, well, whatever agreement we make with the landowner or the town would be a 25-year lease.
Got it. So it's a lease, okay?
I'm sorry?
What do you by that period of time, the technology that you offer and the report without data?
It would be up to Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T. They would upgrade as the years go on.
And you said.
That's why they need the period of time.
And you said that this company or like your partner has been doing this for 40 years, like.
Yes.
Okay, does the board have any questions?
Definitely would like to see something in writing that we can discuss that's a little bit more concrete, what this would look like. How many towers?
Yeah.
And I'd like Java to review it.
In the process, so we have to give you
We
a
write,
approval to
we
move.
write out the whole process, what it would be.
Thanks.
Okay, the amount of towers, we won't know
Yeah.
until the study's done.
Mhm.
Well, the location of the towers is important to the area. We would really like to know, to give us some type of idea.
Right, it's not gonna cover, vacant land and we're not gonna install it to cover, 500 acres of land that no one lives on. It's gonna be where the population is.
Are there any known health hazards to the towers?
Not that I'm aware of at this point.
Got it. And just so you know, too, part of the UDC plan at one time in 2010, I think was the last update where this was affected. Our area was not looked at for development of cell phone towers because of the eagle population. They thought that these cell phone towers would distract from the eagle population. Well, not to be funny, but the eagle population is soaring in our area. It's come back 100%. We have a very large contingency of eagles in our area. And so the county itself has been looking at fiber optic internet, but not cell phone towers. So that's one answer is, obviously providing a fiber optic network. But unfortunately, the way they've determined it, the company's based in Kingston, so they're going to try to come down through Liberty, which that we all know is a part of the county that has cell phone service and has pretty decent internet. We're down in the river corridor eating rocks over here trying to get our cell phones to work. But yeah, so those are just a couple of the things that I know about, like fiber optic and cell phone tower networks. Are you comfortable providing us with a written proposal?
Yes.
And Java, do you have any concerns or questions?
No, I'd like to take a look at the proposal, and then certainly have questions.
Okay,
Thanks.
okay. Thank you, Eric. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, are there any committee reports from the BDC, Upper Delaware Scenic Byway, 911 Heroes Park, Town Historian, RSVP, or the Energy Committee, or the Health and Wellness Committee? I don't think I see any of them speaking. I see one, but again, we will not call for that. Okay. Okay, Code Committee, Laura and Tom?
Sure. We did receive some complaints regarding a project on River Road, and I supplied the board to help clarify some of those questions that were brought up, a final clearance report. So they have that in their packets to review. Any questions can be sent over to our code enforcement. And we have escalated those complaints and done our due diligence with Fusco and our code enforcers. And that came about early yesterday morning. Also,
Just if anybody is interested in seeing that report, it is available in my office.
Laura, can I make a comment on that, or is it not?
Why don't we let Laura finish the report and then, yeah, we'll definitely.
Yeah, we
talk
can
to the
circle back.
Contractor, whoever he may be.
The town board has also been supplied with our monthly permit reports and their statuses, as well as any updates to codes, to complaints that have been received on properties in and around town. We are moving forward on some of the longstanding code complaints. So the court's going to be busy as we start renovation. And any questions in regards to complaints, shortly there'll be a new webpage added to our website where you can log in onto the Town of Highland website and submit any complaints that you might have noticed around town. We are now going to be accepting complaints that are listed to an address or an SBL parcel number. And we will need a way of contacting the complainant, so an email address or a phone number. We've had a weird history of anonymous complaints, and we're not going to be accepting anonymous complaints anymore, as we have to deal with these and consult with a lot of people, including property owners, legal. We need to have someone to reference and follow up with.
And also, just for the record too, our code office is contracted through Fusco. Over the course of last year, we had 4 separate personnel that have been working with us. That was leveled down to 2 mid-year, and now we are down to 1 single dedicated person for our town, which is pretty great. So Jim is going to come and speak to the public next meeting. He's going to give us some talk about asbestos remediation, just for any demolition that will be happening, since demo is on the brain over here in town right now. And you'll also have the opportunity as the public to ask him questions in general as well. With that, Matt, did you want to include anything about the demolition?
I just wanted to, just bear with me, I'll try to articulate it as briefly as possible.
Speak up.
Speak up.
You know what, take that podium, you're not on mute.
Review
My
it.
pitch will be as exciting as ever.
Are you gonna feed us?
Homework.
So my name is Matt Saluso, I have Next Gen Property Services, I also own a car wash in Barryville, some other properties and businesses in town. Just to kind of echo what Laura and Tom mentioned, I'm just gonna quickly recap the situation. I think it's important for a few reasons to bring this up, not only selfishly, but kind of to echo what was brought up in the beginning of this meeting as far as the divisiveness and the potential toxicity and also danger that comes along with this kind of stuff. 8 River Road is a privately owned piece of property. I work directly with the owner of that piece of property. For the last 6 months, we've done our due diligence to meet the requirements to obtain a demolition permit in the town of Highland. That includes having an initial asbestos survey done, testing on the property, subsequent abatement, and then a following remediation report, and a final inspection to prove that there's no asbestos remaining on the property. Right, so all of that paperwork was submitted to Fusco Engineering. We received a permit to do the demolition. Demolition started probably about 2 weeks ago, and I knew when we knew going into this, it's kind of a very visible spot right on River Road. 3 very old, dusty, dirty buildings that had to come down, which was going to be an eyesore. So we were, we've been very, very aware of what it was going to look like, and did all of our due diligence to make sure that all the I's and T's were crossed or whatever. Yesterday afternoon, individuals with a vendetta against the code enforcement office or some sort of agenda against this town board not only videotaped us, recorded us without our knowing, but most importantly are like making false claims and accusations that we're mishandling hazardous waste. And I think like an important thing just for everybody to think about, right? It's like, this is someone's livelihood, like this is someone's business, and like that, to falsely accuse somebody of mishandling waste like that is potentially, a career-ending accusation. They're targeting people with people caught in the crossfire. I think it's just wrong. So I just wanted to echo, to just let our neighbors be aware of that. Because it's a dangerous precedent. It's dangerous behavior. It's not right. It's blowing my mind in the last 48 hours that this is going on when we've done everything right. Everything is documented on paper. There's like a 30-page asbestos report related to this project. So it's ridiculous. So that's really all I have to say. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Definitely didn't have to do that. Thank you. And then for the rest of the code, we'll move it over to Mr. Fuller, who has a presentation for the town tonight. Mr. Fuller, if you don't mind speaking into the microphone at the podium too, please. Thank you.
All right, good evening to the board. My name is John Fuller. I'm a professional engineer representing the owner of the parcel that we have before you tonight. And I appreciate you taking the time to hear us this evening. With me tonight is Mr. Keim and Jakob Metzger. They own the 2 parcels, which is about 94 acres here in the town. They purchased those properties when they bought the old Brookwood camps back in 2022. The property in question is bounded by Proctor Road, Baker Road, and camp on the south side. They're looking to develop this property. We are looking to develop it as a single-family residential subdivision. And during our review and consultation, we went through your ordinance for subdivision. It's in what we call the R2 district, which is residential agricultural, which has certain requirements that we call bulk requirements for lot development. Most notably is lot area, which is 3 acres. Within the ordinance, there is in the definitions of what we call major subdivisions, which this is exactly that. This would be considered a major subdivision. There is reference to the notation of clustering techniques. But nowhere in your ordinance is there a definition of what clustering is, or which is commonly also referred to as conservation subdivision. Many municipalities, most notably Lumberland, which adjoins you, they have definition in their subdivision ordinances as to what clustering is and conservation. So what we did in submitting to you, we've also met, we did a brief work session with Mr. Spitz and the planning board and also with Mr. Ken Ellsworth of Keystone Associates. Mr. Ellsworth is very familiar with the concept of clustering and conservation subdivision. But Mr. Spitz was very clear during our work session with him that the board, being the planning board, could not act on a clustering concept because it's not specifically defined in your ordinance. And so we made the determination that we'd like to come before you and see if the board would consider. Again, it's alluded to in definition within your subdivision ordinance, but there is no ordinance criteria as to what clustering or conservation is. The great benefit of clustering or conservation is that you conserve open space. Your development is on a much smaller footprint, and you conserve a lot of open space. And so the map that I have in front of you outlines what we would call a conventional subdivision, which completely meets the ordinance and would be by right, under the current ordinance definition. If I may, I'll just turn the sheet. This is an example of what we call clustering or conservation subdivision. So we reduce the size of the lots. In this case, I'm demonstrating a 1 acre scenario. We reduce the size of the residential lots, and we conserve a lot more open space, greater than 50% of that 94 acres that they own. The difficulty, we can't proceed at your planning board because there is no definition of clustering. And so we wanted to come before the board tonight to see if the board would entertain looking into and or possibly adopting a clustering format in your subdivision ordinance, which would allow similar projects, much like our own, to proceed under that concept. So with that, I'll open to any questions that the board has regarding our request.
I'm sorry if I missed this, but how many lots or houses are you trying to develop in this subdivision?
22.
22?
Yeah.
And through this clustering, you would be conserving 4 acres? If we permitted, is that what you said?
No, not 4 acres. We would conserve about 50% of open space.
And
So
what is the total acreage?
So the total acreage is about 94 acres. Yeah, there's actually 2 parcels involved. But the total land is about 94 acres.
And you would preserve 50% of that as open
That would
space?
be preserved, yes.
And then you're asking us if we would consider 1 acre lots or 2 acre lots?
Well, what I would consider, we've given you a scenario of a 1 acre situation. But I would ask the board to consider creating or providing definition as to what the clustering techniques are, which is referenced in your subdivision ordinance. And I'm sure that, there are many examples. Like I said, Lumberland has a similar ordinance about clustering or conservation. There are many municipalities that have it now. It's been very common in the last 20 years.
And for the board and for the public too, can you please define on your map, what is the border there that exists? I mean, I know that the backside of Brookwood is considered in Highland, but what is the actual separation?
So this, which I'll call the western half of my map, north being up on the paper. The western half is Baker Road. So the 2 properties in question have frontage directly on Baker Road.
Where's Baker Road?
This is Baker Road.
But where is it?
Barker?
I'm sorry, Barker.
Okay.
It's gonna take.
I apologize. Barker. I'm sorry. The surveyor had spelt it Baker.
No worries.
And I just looked at the map. I apologize. It's Barker. Apologies. So scratch everything that I said about this.
That's okay.
But Barker Road is on the west. Proctor is on the east, so it has a significant amount of frontage on Proctor.
Mhm.
And then the Brookwood camp, which the owners have purchased, is what I'll call is bounded to the south.
Mhm.
And how does the camp relate to the subdivision?
Other than that, they're common owners, it will have no impact in what their intentions are here relative to the camp.
And what is
camp
the
will continue to
current,
operate.
what is the current use, because again, it's not in our town, it's in Lumberland. What is the current usage or utilization of Brookwood Camp right now?
It's a camp, Tanya, if you wanna introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chaim, I'm expert, and I'm Yaakov. It's my twin brother. The name of our camp is called Camp Te'ulim.
Camp, what was that?
Te'ulim, which is the Hebrew word for twins. So we're twins and we're very proud of it. My mother is very proud of it. And the camp is, we purchased the camp in 2022. Brookwood Camps, it's a beautiful camp. You're all welcome to come in and we'll glad give you a tour. It's a teen boys camp that is catering for, give a much needed respite for teenage boys to get out in the summer and to have a time of their life, which we do, we're very passionate about it. And property next door that John is talking about is ours, and part of our plan, on what campus help fund would be to develop the property next door for houses, for housing. So it's not gonna have anything to do with camp, it's gonna be people that wanna have a summer home upstate. And like John is saying, what we're asking is, instead of having to develop all 94 acres, conserve a large part of it. And just to make the lot size a little smaller so that we could develop a lot smaller and conserve these 50 acres. And leave that for the town, the forest, and for all the snakes that are rolling, they spend time over there instead of in the courthouse. But the idea is that it's a win-win for everybody. Obviously, it makes it simpler to develop. At the same time, it gives back over 50 acres back to the town that doesn't have to be developed and it can stay as is. But that's fine. It's an honor to be here. It's my first time being in this town. My brother and I are both we're we grew up our whole life spending time in the castles, but not so much this part. And the boys they come here are so appreciative of how friendly everyone is. Anytime we're in text or wherever we are, everyone's so friendly here and so nice and such a nice part of the castles. So we just want to extend our appreciation to everybody, to all the friendly neighbors for being such gracious hosts for our boys in the summer. And we're looking forward to having many happy and enjoyable summers here together in this beautiful town.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, out of these 22 houses that'll be built, are they pre-sold or will they be open to the general market? As you know, in Sullivan County, we have a housing shortage in a big way. And we're looking for every opportunity we can to provide affordable housing to residents and families upward mobility. Will these be open to the public to purchase?
We haven't got to that stage yet. I mean, it's possible. We're just right now focused on just getting the approvals for what we can do. But as far as we're concerned, everything is on the table. We just wanna, it's a financial question. We wanna be able to just develop it because we need that income to help support the camp. But we're open to anything. We didn't really discuss that.
So that's the motive, is to basically raise funds for the camps, to keep the camps.
We're a nonprofit camp, so.
Right. Okay.
I have a
You
question.
said it is a nonprofit?
Yeah.
Is the camp a nonprofit?
I can't be nonprofit.
Is the clustering meant to preserve the rest of the land as is forested? Or is there future plans to develop that area too, or clear it?
If I may, under clustering definitions and a lot of ordinances that I'm referencing, it's to preserve it as open space, so it's no further development, no further subdivision, nothing. It's basically the benefit of clustering is to the general public is that you conserve a lot of forested open space from development in the future. Certainly the benefit to applicants or developers is you're building on a smaller footprint, so the development costs are less. So, but the benefit to the greater public is it's left undeveloped. It just becomes forest open space.
Okay, because to me, there is a difference between forest and open space. And so if you're gonna clear cut the rest of the acreage.
No, I mean, again, and a lot of this appears in definition.
Yeah,
And again, I'll
I'm
keep
familiar.
referencing Lumberland only because they're next door and they have a conservation subdivision. the idea is you don't clear cut it, it's. It remains as is, so as it stands today, it'll stay that way in perpetuity.
So you're seeking our interest in further defining what we have as cluster techniques written into something that is cluster development / conservation subdivision
Correct.
for purposes of this project.
Well, it certainly for our purpose, but I think there's benefit to the town to do so for other parcels that, you know, people may look to develop in the future.
Mhm.
So it's not, I mean, yes, we are asking on behalf of our project, but I think there's benefit in doing so to the greater town,
Okay.
you know, on large parcels. It, like I said, it's become a very common definition and portion of a lot of subdivision ordinances throughout the area. So it's not unique. But right now, as your subdivision, it references the idea of clustering techniques, but there's no definition anywhere in your ordinance as to what that means. And so we're asking if you would consider providing that definition going forward, you know, for our purposes, but certainly for the benefit of the greater town.
Excuse me, out of the 94 acres, you're gonna develop 44 acres?
Slightly less than 50%. I mean, so one of the things right now, I'm representing what is a 1 acre scenario. We could even go a little bit less than that. In a lot of clustering definitions in various ordinances, what they often say is there's no minimum like acreage lot size. As long as you can meet the minimum standards to develop the lot. So most commonly, that's to position a house, drill a well, provide a septic, and get adequate separation distances from adjoining parcels. So I'm showing you a 1 acre scenario, but if possible, you could even provide clustering where you're down to 3/4 of an acre or less. The whole idea is build on a smaller footprint, conserve larger open space.
So for
So
traditional,
those 20
I'm sorry, go ahead, Tom.
I'm sorry, so the proposal was 22 homes total
Yes.
on 44 acres? That's 2 acres,
Approximately, yes.
okay,
Yeah,
so that's
we're-
2 acre lots.
Well, I mean, the problem is you gotta build a road, like we're proposing a road is this, so that's gonna take up some area. And by trying to configure lot lines, you know, they could be a little bit more than an acre, but we're trying to show you what a clustering technique is and what the
Mhm.
benefit of it is.
Mhm.
Would you be opposed to, if we didn't define, you know, if we were not able to approve cluster housing? I see that you would approximately get roughly 31 homes if you just did traditional development of the land in the subdivision form on the 3 acre lot, allotment. Would you consider moving forward with the project without the clustering of the development to where you would just be developing the full property without the open space contingency of the
Like-
clustering?
Like the first map.
So, yeah, I mean, that's our only option, so the.
Why is that the only option?
Well, I mean, if the board is not.
If it wasn't approved.
Yeah, I mean, if you're
Something.
not in a position that you want to proceed with the final clustering, then our only alternative to move forward would be to do what I call a conventional subdivision, which is develop the whole thing.
Mhm.
And maximize, you know, what we can gain, you know, based on it. Now, I'm using 22 lots. I mean, like you said, there is, if you take 94 acres divided by 3 acre lots, you know, it comes up to 30 some. That's not practical only because
road.
there's a portion of the property which is wetlands. There's a portion of the property which is hilly. So through careful study, I've represented a conventional subdivision which will yield 22. And maybe we could squeeze one more in there, but it's probably not practical. So even though by numeric we could get 30 plus, it's not practical. And so a lot of times what happens with clustering is you do a conventional design and say, this is what we can gain. This is the maximum we can gain. And then when you go to clustering, you use that same quantity. So if the maximum I can get is 22, when I go to clustering, I'll still only get 22. It's just on a smaller footprint.
Sonia, do you have any questions? Tom, do you have any further questions?
Not at this time, no.
Laura, do you have any further questions?
No, thank you.
I don't feel prepared to vote as we're missing one of our council people this evening.
Mr. Supervisor,
There's going to be time for public comment.
I'd like to address the.
Sure, we have public comment,
At the end.
at the end of our meetings, so if
Let
we,
somebody else do it.
I'm sorry. If we could just hold off, we will definitely give you an opportunity to speak, thank you. I don't feel prepared at this time to vote. If you could, give us all this as a digital packet
You
and
did.
also, come up with the definitions and the desired definitions of what you're trying to get us to define. In addition to, Laura, you're shaking your head. Yes, addition.
We have, he's listed some examples we can look at. I would like us to be the ones to come up with definitions and draft
No,
definitions.
I'm saying
in
the
partnership.
The request for definitions, like if you could just give us the things that you need to find out of our code, what you're looking for from us. We'll speak to that because we are in our comprehensive plan sessions right now, which we'll be talking about in just a little bit, so we'll definitely be addressing all of these things during those sessions. But I would like to see a written proposal. I'd like us all to be able to discuss it as a board. I'd also like to connect with both the planning board chair and the zoning board of appeals chair so that we can kind of get some of their first pass. Because obviously, if we were to green light something, it would go immediately to the planning board. And because by definition, it's not allowed in our code, it would then bounce immediately to the zoning board of appeals. That's just the mechanism that we know to be true for this sort of precedent of a project. So I'd like to have counsel with them as well. And also just get our other council person moved in and also get feedback from Josh.
Just a quick note, if you do make the change to the code, right, it wouldn't go to the ZBA
No.
because it'll be permitted, it would be authorized. It wouldn't be a.
If we change the code during the session.
With
Correct. Okay.
definition. My only question to the board is applicants' timing here, because we are in that comprehensive committee review period for the plan. I'm not sure if the comp plan is looking at clustering or if they're doing anything with that. I would say be cautious in terms of acting on a zoning change, a substantive zoning change.
Relative to a proposal.
Right, while the comp committee is still looking at the comp
Yeah.
plan, only because they might come up with something. They might be all for clustering, or they might say, we don't want clustering, they're not gonna have, you're locked into this clustering.
We did actually have a session regarding open spaces, so we've addressed it lightly.
Yeah.
And the county has discussed open spaces with us, and both of our heads of our comprehensive plan are from the planning department, one retired and one's present.
So what's, Mr. Fuller, what's your guys' timing on this? How soon do you need this? Because the opportunities are there to, work with the comp plan during the public process and get this thing. Part of that, in which case then the zoning laws will ultimately be amended to include this.
Well, certainly there's benefit, but if it's something that is gonna happen within the next, several months or half a year, I would say we certainly would be patient for that. I think they want to move as quickly as they can.
Yeah.
But if, there's great benefit if we're able to cluster, so I don't know if we have a time specifically set. But if there's some expectation that the comprehensive plan will move forward in the next half a year, I think we can work with that.
Thank you.
Sir, did you have anything directly relative to this project? Are you a neighbor or are you involved in the development? Yes.
Mr. Gale, yes.
As a 25-year member of the zoning board, we've dealt with two issues with clustering. So both were denied, and you didn't mention, was this kicked back to the zoning board yet?
No, this is the first presentation they've made.
Okay. So one was a 500-acre parcel where of the Veritas property on 55, where he wanted to take 50 acres and make a cluster development in that and leave 450 acres. I wish Larry Fisher was here because he could give you more.
You're doing a good job.
Yeah, I know, you guys can have some, you can. Okay, the other one there was a 28-acre lot in Barryville that somebody wanted to build senior housing in it, Okay, and he wanted us to change the zoning from, I think it was 3 acres or 5 acres at the time, down to 1 acre lot, so he could put 24 houses down there, and we denied both. So the town has precedent on cluster housing, and I just wanted to make the board aware of it.
Thank you, thank you
I
very much.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Clarence.
Okay.
Yeah, let me just add that
Yeah.
those were zoning board of appeals cases and decisions, and the reason those applications were before the zoning board. Is because the applicants attempted to do some project that was against the bulk standards. What this applicant is asking is a change in the standards applicable to everybody, so that what they're doing is in conformance with that. In that situation, the application wouldn't go to the zoning board, and any precedential effect that zoning board decisions had. Or are limited to those types of applications, and it wouldn't impact the town board, or this application, the town board amended the code to allow for cluster.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very
Mr.
much.
Fuller. Thank you so much.
Mr. Supervisor.
Yes.
we got
Oh, yes, we also have one more bid process that we're under. We put out an RFP for the pumps, because we also received a grant from NYSERDA to replace our heating system for primary use of heating pumps or split systems.
And AC.
For
the town hall.
What, this building?
Yeah, for
This
this
building,
building. And so we put out that RFP, I believe, in October, and we received proposals. Tom then met with all of the people who were interested.
Right, we had 4 bidders for this project. It's for mini splits for the town hall here for air conditioning and heat. We received a grant and we had 4 bidders and only one turned in his bid, and John is opening it right now to see where we're at. And the contractor who
When it was received
on the 23rd, it was received on 12/23.
by the town clerk on the 23rd of December. As the date suggested.
Thank you. Okay, so. Again, the grant amount was 10,000. We have 2 systems proposed, system A. For $26,782. And system B for $20,462.
Okay.
So this is what we received. On behalf of the town, we have the benefit of having a really wonderful energy consultant, Frank Monteleone, who's on our planning board, was able to come up with some plans within our building to determine like the usage, whether it be units to compressors, and work through that with Tom. And so the gentlemen were given, I believe, those plans.
Yes, everyone, it was a equal level bid across the board for 4 contractors. And like I said earlier, 1 responded. So I'll have to sit down with Frank Monteleone and level the bids and see where we're at.
Okay, I don't feel prepared to
No,
vote on this tonight.
no, we
It
can't vote on
exceeds our grant amount, yeah, we'll just have to get to our consultant to see what's the best use and if this satisfies the confines. And I'd also like to pass it to NYSERDA, who issued the grants, because they are energy specialists, and that's part of what you can use some of the grant funds for, is to determine this thing. We don't have to spend money on it, but I would still like to circle back with them to see what they recommend.
We have to review.
Okay, Sue, did you have something that you wanted to get approval for? We needed a
Yes,
motion.
I just wanted to get approval for the Humane Society Port Jervis and Deer Park. They sent me their agreement in a little bit late. And I just would like to, we have used them for this past several years, and I would like a motion to approve their agreement, which is, they're very, very good. They're really great with the animals and helping people and that, and they get $250 quarterly. And in the past couple years, we've paid them $250 for the year.
And not to mention too, Port Jervis is a wonderful facility. We have our animal control officer has a wonderful relationship with Port Jervis. Our last Association of Supervisors meeting, we met with all of the supervisors and the animal control for the county. And they contract with Liberty. We are definitely in a wonderful situation contracting with Port Jervis. Liberty runs out of space all the time. The dog catchers a lot of times are at home with the dog, and so they have to take on the dogs themselves and house them overnight. It's a really not ideal situation, so we're lucky to be in closer proximity to Port Jervis and be working with them. So do I have a motion to approve continuing with Port Jervis Humane Society? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Sonia, can you give us just a brief update on our insurance coverage?
The only thing that I'm happy to report is Father Richard is going to be looking at the agreement at their first meeting on, or the first Tuesday in February.
That's great. He's been looking at it for a year.
Yes, he has. Yeah, we did deliver. it to
Extended
him.
emergency
That's right.
shelter for the Ullin area. Okay.
Thank you. And we have some members.
Repeat that, I need it.
For the emergency services, so in 2021, when they vacated the highway garage over here, we gifted St. Anthony's with the generator. And so the hope would be that St. Anthony's Parish Center would become a storm shelter if there was an extended storm like the 2018 storms. And so we gave him an agreement last year around this time to get approved by the diocese, and we know there's a lot of red tape with that. So hopefully he's been able to connect with the diocese. And then we talked to the county at McPhillips, I believe is still here, right? Raise your hand. He connected us with some resources through the county and through United Way and other nonprofit institutions that can give monies to churches. The state can't give money to churches for things like development of storm shelters, but what we're looking for is to put in a shower if there's an extended storm.
Oh, okay.
Similar to what we had at the American Legion building before, but this would service like Ullin residents and obviously anybody who could make it to Ullin in case of an extended storm. And Tom just located how many cots that we had.
We have 23 cots now.
And so the hope is that we can store those cots in one of the CCD classrooms, you know.
Well, we
and-
don't really have a whole lot of room there.
I know, that was one of the first things we spoke about. We talked to different members of both the
thank
parish
you.
council and CCD and the food pantry about how we could store those and how we could divide them up. Because the hope is that the town hall is maintained as a command center. It hasn't been a problem, you know, we haven't had extended storms since 2018. But we did have like a 3-day storm where we did open up town hall, and we do have to make a lot of pretty time sensitive, nerve-wracking calls when it comes time to when we open up storm centers, what we will make our highway guys endure to fight the weather, what our communications are with NYSEG. So it'd be really great to not have to utilize town hall. We'd like to utilize the senior center as well as the Ullin pantry. And then we've been talking to other churches and institutions too.
What about the American Legion?
We've spoke with the American Legion.
That's,
Right now, it's not an option we're gonna pursue. There's other considerations that we're trying to work with them on for the ambulance and for other things. So we're just kind of in the infancy stages of those negotiations. So hopefully that would be the growth, that we would have a pitch point in each one of the hamlets. Also, Koinonia applied for a T-Mobile grant with the hopes that they get the grant. We gave them a letter of support. And if they get a generator, then they would also open up for the community as a storm shelter for Highland League.
thank you.
Okay, with that, we are going to break into executive session for the purposes of discussing coverage of insurance for former employees. The Marion O'Neill Culture Club has provided refreshments, so I would encourage you all to try Marion's delicious baked goods. Margie's baked goods over there.
Question. Any required format that you have to go into executive session before you make public comment? Because what happens is when the meetings run the city and then you break for executive session, people who had wanted to share something in the appropriate time don't get a chance to do it because the meeting starts so much.
Sure, we don't anticipate the executive session being long, so we'll do our best. We have packed a lot into this agenda.
Is it required that you do it at this particular time?
Not required, you can certainly do public comment now.
No, there's no requirement there.
Okay.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to break into executive session for the purposes of discussing coverage of insurance?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We'll be back. Oh, here, like.
I think you see all. Yeah.
Thank you for sticking it out. It's not usually this long.
Yeah. I got it all the time. There's a certain point that I want to call supervisor. And it's only because it's gonna be 16.
Okay. We'll try to move it.
You guys are, you're behind it, so.
Okay.
We go past 11 o'clock.
No, we will not.
That's good cooking.
We're good.
Zero down. Yep.
Yeah.
Don't blame me.
We have a motion to return to executive session.
I'll make that motion.
All in favor?
I'll second it. I'll second it. Then all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Jen, you put on the record that during executive session, no, we're staying given votes cast.
you did that? Okay,
Excuse me.
I've been discussing, oh, sorry, I mentioned this earlier, but I would like to get approval for the Association of Towns training in New York City. It's a 3-day training session. Or sorry, 2-day. We actually only have to be there 2 days. The third day is like a reception of some sort that I don't think we need to participate in because it's $85 a person. But it's $100 for participation. And then Laura found a hotel for under $200. I do not require accommodations, and Sonia may be able to get a discounted or free room via her company. We're going to research that. It's in line with what we paid for the Association of Towns training in Albany last year.
And less than the early bird offering.
Yes, and less than the early bird offering. So I feel like everybody's done their due diligence. Again, it would be myself, Laura, and Sonia. Sonia would be, can attend all of the newly elected officials training. For myself and Laura, I want to focus on grants, information that's been raised in our community. I also want to look into comprehensive plan funding. Because we were denied our CFA application. A lot of small communities under a population of 10,000 were denied this cycle. So MRV group put that application forward. So we don't have money for our code rewrite. We do have a lot of expenses to continue with our comprehensive plan. And again, we have the benefit of having Carol Roy, who's retired from Sullivan County Planning, and Heather Jackson, who's a current planning commissioner on our committee with us, so they are able to lead code rewrites, so we can save some money. Is Matt McPhillips still here?
No.
We've harassed Matt already for money, and so he thinks that they do have some additional planning dollars. And we've also spoke with Assemblywoman Paula Kay, who's going to get back to us after this Albany session that she's currently at. So the hope is that we'll be able to scrounge up enough money, be scrappy to get our code rewrites done based on the sessions. We had very, very informed sessions with lots of participation. We've covered open spaces, hamlet development, natural resources, emergency services, and we've gotten a lot of really wonderful feedback. Everybody will be receiving a survey in the mail in the next couple of weeks. Our new deputy clerk, Melissa, not so new anymore, but Melissa Denlinger has been appointed for the comprehensive plan committee clerk, so she'll be compiling all the results. And we're very excited about that. But going back to the training, I just need a motion to approve the cost of the hotel for Laura Burrell and for Sonia Kidney, and the participation fee of $100 per person to the Association of Towns training. And Tom, can you speak to the Association of Towns training, like what the experience was like, or what we did in Albany?
Yeah, last year I attended the Association of Towns, and they basically explained guidelines on what you can do and what you can't do during a public meeting. And we talked about insurance and everything that has to do with town business. It was very informative. It was good.
And I just have to say, I went to both, I went to New York and Albany. I found New York to be a lot more informed and a lot more active. I felt like we were kind of going to public servant 101, felt like we were all in college together, which was a nice feeling and it's good for camaraderie, but I think in terms of like getting the most bang for our buck for the same cost, I think that the city one is probably a bigger benefit to public officials. So do I have a motion to approve the cost of Association of Towns training? For the three of us?
Motion.
Second? I'll second that. Okay, all in favor?
I,
All opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Next up, we have been discussing our former deputy supervisor, Glenn Pontier, was the FOIL officer, for Sullivan County. And he shared a little bit of his expertise with us, while during his tenure. The FOIL officer position is an optional position in New York State. And it would give sort of Javed an assistant or a direct access to working with somebody on our FOILs as the FOILs get more and more complicated as time goes on. And the number of FOILs that are coming in increases. We need to be very vigilant about how we're handling those FOILs. There's been more than 15 unanswered FOILs from individuals who've received complaints on FOILs and how they're being
I would
handled.
like to see those complaints, please.
Sure, that's fine. We can share those with you, but I think that this is like a deterrent from it being an issue because it would be one person's direct position. We talked this over with Glenn. He wanted to come in at whatever the entry level compensation was for a clerk, which would be $18 an hour. And so it would be the creation of a FOIL access officer. Is that correct? Am I reading this correct, Doc?
Just to clarify, the position of having a FOIL active officer is an option, you have to have it. It's just that typically you designate that the town clerk, it's a separate hat, the town clerk wears, as a separate apart from being a clerk. But you're not required to put that hat on the clerk. They put it up on the, so that's just.
Got it. And we discussed, well, hold on, Steve, I want to give the full presentation to the board. We also are taking it out of the research, the line item from Javed's line item. Does anybody have a budget handy? It's basically the additional $5,000 that's afforded to the attorney for the town.
Mhm.
So he would be working directly with the FOIL officer and that would be covered under the purview. So it would be limited to $5,000 total, which is the full extent of that at $18 an hour. So he would never exceed that $5,000 line item. But I can anticipate as of right now, if we look at last year's numbers, that it wouldn't exceed, even half of that with what's been going on or how long it traditionally takes to answer FOILs. So did you have something you wanted to add to the board?
Yes, I do. I would like, before the board votes on this, I would like the opportunity to talk to the Association of Towns. I'd like the opportunity to have access to the FOILs that you said were not
Answered in the time.
answered.
Yep.
And would Mr. Pontier then have access to my files and my office?
No, he would have access through you, so you would work with, he would work with you to get the provided and requested information, and then for John, can you explain the process or what it would look like?
So in the situation where the FOIL access officer is not the town clerk, FOILs would come to a generic FOIL email, FOIL town pilot, Gmail, or whatever the case is. The FOIL access officer receives it, identifies what the person's looking for, then would go to the town clerk and say, hey, Sue, I've reviewed this FOIL request. Out of the 5 documents requested, I think 3 of them are proper and 2 of them are exempt from FOIL. Did you provide me with the budget, this and the other? And then
Okay.
Sue, he or she doesn't go through her records. Sue pulls those out, gives to him. And the FOIL access officer is responsible for the initial acknowledgement, the response, and then if there's an appeal, the appeal.
Okay, so then if it's, which I do get
Yeah.
FOILs for the code office.
Yeah.
I then take the time to get the
Right.
information from the code office.
Yes, you wouldn't have to anymore. So if it's a record that belongs to another department, for example, code office.
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
Why not speak to me before a public forum that this was something that you were going to do?
I think because we are in a danger of receiving Article 78s, and I would like to prevent you from receiving an Article
But
78.
just a simple conversation would have been
But Sue,
appreciated.
so we
No,
have,
it's okay.
no, but no,
I-
we're bringing it up in a public forum, so
We're
I'm
good.
not answering you.
I'm good.
Okay,
I would just like the opportunity to see the record of the foils,
okay.
okay? Before you make a determination
Is everybody comfortable with that? Do you
Yeah.
think that's me?
Yes.
Okay,
I am.
and speak with the Association of Towns.
sure. That
Okay.
sounds good.
It's on
Thank you,
the-
I appreciate that.
David, did you have any additional input?
No, no,
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm happy to hold on that. We already discussed the personnel, manual handbook, update that, Laura's been working on. We received the first pass. Thank you for that. We provide you with,
Yeah, I gave you a deadline.
Yep, yep.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And then we will, put that into motion along with the, agreed upon procedure, or sorry, the, compliance procedure and rules of decorum. Also, just a little brief update on our comprehensive plan. We were denied our CFA application, so we will not be receiving funding for the rewriting of codes. We are getting ready to utilize our research expenditure line A8030 for mailing out surveys to everybody in town. So Melissa, A8030 for research and study. We included an additional $4,000 for the mailing in this. So we're going to be sending these out. Melissa and I are going to work together tomorrow to get the exact weight from the post office to see what bulk rates, what's the cheapest way basically we can get this out to the whole town. And then we're also going to be looking at the platform SurveyMonkey so that it, as we continue like a social media digital campaign and also a poster campaign throughout town, we're going to determine a QR code which coordinates with SurveyMonkey. And so she'll be able to input all the results there. So we'll have very definitive results as to how people feel about these various topics that we've raised. And you'll also be given the opportunity, is like a comment box. You know, you can add additional things in that'll go into the public record as we determine the codes. So that
And
will be.
will, the dog licensing and stuff still be.
Yes, and we're also gonna be, yes.
In place.
And we also get to use this opportunity to speak to the town. We want to let everybody know about our funding. We want to let everybody know about dog registration because it's a very costly thing. A lot of towns will put out a postcard to say, hey, register your dogs, but you know, how much is it to register a dog?
A neutered spayed dog is $6.50. Non is $13, but you can also do it for a 3-year period.
Yeah, so you're not getting a lot of revenue from these dog licenses, so.
And we can also change that pricing
Yeah.
as a town.
Yeah, we could change it, but in general, like, we're not gonna be able to ever be in an opportunity where we're collecting enough money to our mailing makes sense, so this is a great opportunity. We're also gonna be giving people information on our food programs and some of our grant programs that are available from other extended agencies like the Delaware Scenic Byway. There's grant opportunities and micro grants there for the public too that will share as well, resources. The Marion O'Neill Culture Club is meeting for the first time on Friday at Crossroads at 5 p.m. Our proposed date for the St. Patrick's Day, part 2, the resurrection, for Marion, in honor of Marion O'Neill, this lovely lady here, is March 16th. That's the Sunday. That's the Sunday before St. Patrick's Day. So we hope that everybody comes up with their wonderful floats. Hopefully we'll have our Grand Poobah carrying the saint back, Mr. Andrew Valenti. He did a great job leading the procession last year. We had horses, we had lots of merriment. It was great, and hopefully it'll be bigger and better than last year. And again, we're meeting this Friday. So if you have any input, please email me at supervisor@townofhighland.ny if you wanted to share anything about the parade or if you'd like to see anything included. And I also wanted to just note, for the River Accesses project, we still have around $5,000 left of that grant. And so we talked, Laura and I have been working with Sullivan 180. And she basically said, propose how you want to spend the rest of your grant down. So what we're looking to do is sort of combine forces for the past like 6 years. The Greater Berryville Chamber of Commerce and Carol Sun Home have been doing all the beautification efforts in the town. And so we're looking to do something a little bit more sustainable and less laborious for these people because we've had 2 presidents burn out who become chief gardeners all summer long. Our interns start to wane, the interest is taxing. You know, Laura can speak to how taxing it is to manage those gardens as the chamber president. But I think for the town and the chamber to work more cohesively together, we consulted with an indigenous gardener who's going to be building self-sustaining gardens at each one of the river access sites. So we're super excited. So beginning obviously with the Berryville cul-de-sac mural on through the River Road green space, Eagle Observation 1 and 2 will all receive self-sustaining gardens. And something that was really exciting about the proposal that we received from this indigenous gardener is the one that's on River Road. She wants to make an herb garden, a self-sustaining herb garden for residents. So you guys can go pick up sage, you can pick up parsley, hopefully we can get some stuff going with our food program down there, but it'll be great. And the idea is that we won't have to maintain these gardens and it won't be as labor intensive, but we do have a very excited member of our highway department. Since we created 4 new parks, Jim Morvito is very excited in the summer months as the workload sort of trails off in the summer. He's going to use part of his time to be our sort of parks department representative. We've had one in the past, it's kind of fleeting, depending on who's the personnel within the highway department. And so he's taking that on and he's very excited about it, not for the things that they have at the time. So I feel very excited about that. Let's do public comment. Is there any public comment? Yes, thank you.
Regarding the cluster housing. The area which is designated as undeveloped. That's today. Will it be undeveloped tomorrow? And are there any teeth in the designation that we undeveloped? Because I'd like to know that it's undeveloped today. I'd like to know in 10 years from now that it remains undeveloped. And then suddenly there is a new construction taking place on what was previously undeveloped.
Thank you. That's a very valid question, and we definitely would like to include that.
I specialize in those.
Yes.
Mine had to do with cluster housing as well. Does anyone know if there's limitations when they get this cluster housing designation, how high up they can build?
Oh, like story wise?
Yes, yeah.
Good question.
That's a good
That's a
question.
great question, Walt. Thank you.
I'm not gonna get it.
Yeah.
Was there other questions over here? Yes, Sherry?
I just wanted to point out that I told you the property across the street from me on 55 is for sale again. And they're advertising it as a possible place for the campground, multiple houses, apartments. You name it, and it's like everything we're not allowed to have.
Do you have an address? Or I know where you guys are. I can.
Yeah, it's right across the street from us.
Is the undeveloped land, just empty land?
Well, it's all open now. It was bought by 3 gentlemen and I guess we COVID, they lost them and so they want to sell it again. But it's on the listing for properties for sale. They have the list of acceptable uses of the property and I didn't see.
3 out of the 4 of those things that you mentioned are not allowed in the town. Yeah.
Because I don't really wanna see a shopping center going across the street from me.
Yeah, but I mean, just in that hamlet, where you guys are, and I think that's R2. I don't think any of that's allowed anyway, but a campground is definitely, I mean, we can go through it, but thank you for the heads up and we can talk about that. Mel, did you?
Yeah, since there wasn't a previous board vote for the appraisal, I'm wondering, A, what it cost, and B, who did it? And no one mentioned the cost, the tax cost to carry the building if it's not.
So I did speak to Lori King. It would go tax exempt immediately as one of the town properties. And Java, can you speak to the appraisal cost and the approval for that?
Sure, this board took a by motion approved a resolution in November of last year authorizing you, the supervisor or your designee to enter into contracts, agreements, and other actions necessary to effectuate the purchase of the contract. An appraisal is a standard thing you do before you purchase properties. And that was your authority to ask.
And it was a capital appraisal group, and it was appraiser Bob Buckles.
And I think it's need tax and insurance on the property.
We did consult with Christopher, Sonic from NBI, and it would be listed as additionally insured, and it would be no additional cost, so it's an additional cost. Yes, Tina?
My first question is the owner of the fostering suit. Let's say she was talking about changing of cost or applying to the board, whatever town board or zoning board costs to be changed. My question is, I own 40 acres. Can I start to build tomorrow houses on each acre, you know, just because I own the property? And if you change the cost for that group, but for the rest of the community, the cost is 3 acre credits. How we gonna go with that precedent in the future?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge consideration, clearly. I mean, like, it's going against our codes, like which we've established. And if we're talking about, be careful here, but if we're talking about what's been determined or what the findings have been in the comprehensive plan, we need to build open spaces and leave them truly open. And this to me represents a little bit of that. But you know, we do have to consider what they're asking as an applicant. You know, we have to give it all the legal considerations. It goes against our code. It's not within the confines of our code, and they're asking for code exemption at a very sensitive time. Because we don't want to react to our code process to change something while we're writing the codes. That feels like a weird ex post facto. It just doesn't seem right. It seems like they're changing the laws to allow something to exist based on the proposal. So it's, the timing couldn't be more
On our side.
Sensitive.
part sensitive, we'll say, you know,
And
now.
my
So
second part of the question is, the engineer, I believe he was not speaking on behalf of the Twins brothers. That they gonna have, let's say, a 50% preserve plants to the public for the benefits of the public, but us as a public, I don't think we will be permitted to be on somebody's property, whatever, to enjoy nature, or there is a trail, or there is a hiking path, because I used to train the cross country team on the school, you know, and that area, that's
Yeah.
what I'm talking. So basically, that for me sounds like a semantic. I'm talking, I'm preserving something, but I'm preserving with the benefits what Mr. Valenti says in the future, that reserve place to be expanded for my own benefit.
yeah, I mean, and those are serious considerations. I mean, you know, we've all chosen to live in a rural area. And when we talk about the comprehensive plan, it's making plans for the next 10 years of the town we want to live in. And so I cannot stress enough. I really want to rely on all of your feedback, all of your comments, all of your input. When you get that survey, fill it out, and please fill it out from your heart, from your head. You know, give it all the consideration you can, because it's very important. And it's sort of our backbone as a group of citizens to say these are our common values. I know that sometimes in this room, we look like we could be further apart. That's the landscape of the world right now. But this is very important. What do we want the next 10 years of our town to look like? What do we want our town to be developed in? This is a very important process. So I cannot negate or exemplify enough how much we need to focus on our comprehensive plan, because those are our tools that we have to it's our visioning board is a family, is a town. And so that's what we have going for us right now. And yes, Jared.
Staying on the cluster topic, just some other things to consider as you're discussing with them. They talked about giving up 50% of the property for 22 lots. I would suggest that since we do have 3 acre minimum acreage, even if each lot is not 3 acres, then if they want to build 22 lots, they should encompass 66 acres altogether, so that the developed and the non-developed adds up to 66 acres. So that would then be, in my opinion, more of a cluster approach that might be more acceptable, but to put that forward to them rather than the 40 acres they're talking about. Well, and then you could have an open space not to be developed, maybe a park, something in the other undeveloped acreage.
Thank you for your input. I mean, I don't know if you also heard when they were discussing it, they talked about elevation, they talk about wetlands. So these are all bigger issues when you talk about land development that have to be considered, especially when you're talking about open spaces in general. Those are huge considerations. Wetlands is like one of the #1 questions on SECR that we answered even this evening,
But
so.
as you're looking at, at least looking at it is to have that type of parameter. Whatever they're going to do, make sure you have 3 acres per, with that. The other thing would be to see if they would go through. Now, I know I like woodlands as well, but to have some sort of a trail or hiking or walking path, similar to what we tried to do a few years ago up at Hickory, I believe it is.
Right.
To do something like that, that would be open to the public. And I did like your question as to the houses would be available for sale to the public.
Yeah.
Well, that's a
He did
huge.
the old political two-step.
Yeah.
Well, that's a real consideration. I mean, our town is starved. Look at our inventory. There's a bubble that, who knows if it's gonna burst. It's not great if it bursts for us, but we just don't have houses. And I don't think this, whatever, we'll go down the road, but we need the guarantees that if we're developing houses and we're all being taxed with our services, our infrastructure. We're talking about, extension of our fire departments. We're talking about our EMS systems. We're talking about our resources, which are quantifiable that we have as a community. And if we don't have access to that, what does that mean? And so we have a lot of things to consider.
One final point, and then I'll defer to the attorney on this. I don't know if it would go against the laws against religious organizations, but the history has been as families buy residential properties, all of a sudden those residential properties become religious houses and become tax exempt.
Yeah.
So you'd want to have some sort of provision, because one of the advantages to the town would be to take and put it back on the tax rolls. The camp is a not-for-profit, so cluster development presumably would put it back on the tax roll. But
Sure,
if
and
you turn those into houses of worship, individual houses of worship, then all of a sudden they don't come back on the tax rolls.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be too presumptuous with the project, but those are definitely considerations that we have to speak to our tax assessor about and get to know the applicants and. That, that's why I was asking what the nature of the deal was and a couple other questions, so.
Yeah.
We'll, it'll be a due process, but it's a long road and it's a lot to consider for sure. Is there any more public comment? Yes, Mike.
One thing they said was, the camp's totally separate from the development. But then they also said they're building development so that houses can support the camp. So what do they mean by that? They're gonna have short-term rentals? Are they housing people there to run to that and go, that are going to the camp, what was that? It was just a contradiction.
Well, yeah, and it's a very precarious situation as well because we don't allow camps in our town, so we're talking about an adjunct.
Well, and they're just, they're making it part of the camp, what they're doing, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Is there any, yes,
Yeah, regarding the cell towers. I think there's no quarrel that we would all like better cell phone service here. However, I don't know how many of us would like to look out our window at its cell phone tower.
That's right.
So while the objective is good, but I think the implementation.
is.
Open your window and there's your cell phone tower, and I can't see the trees now.
Yeah, I'm hoping that his proposal includes what the towers look like, because I don't know if you've seen, there's several, like if you drive up the Palisades. for instance.
Imitation trees.
Right.
Yeah, there's imitation trees that, stick out like a sore thumb, but they make some
And the
stab.
second part is that with the undeveloped land, with the cluster housing, be careful that they designated the undeveloped as a park. What's a park? A swimming hole, a big Olympic sized pool, what is a park?
It's a good consideration.
Thank you.
as well. Thank you. Are there any more public comment? Yes,
If you did add, I'm just curious, if
Sure.
you did add a clause, like to, back to the cluster housing, would it be like a ratio, like, you can only put 0.5 acres in a house on 1 acre of land?
yeah, that's sort of, I think that their request, and Java can speak to this as well, is to define what was nuanced in our code for cluster housing. So I think that's a lot to unpack, and I think that's a very good question as well, because when you think about open spaces, you do think about in relation to other developed places. And so I think that's a really wonderful consideration that we're gonna have to delve into and rely on our community planners for sure in a big way. But yeah, thank you for that. I think
Our zoning ordinances mention cluster techniques, and there's a lot of vague aspects of our zoning ordinances that are sometimes helpful and sometimes really unhelpful. And so they're asking us to define it more clearly for their purposes, which is a little suspect. But it would also then trigger us looking at our bulk table. And so how many acres are we saying are buildable for such things like single family homes? And then that has a ripple effect in terms of how property is developed throughout our town. So it's a serious consideration. And a change like this is going to take a lot of research and discussion.
Thank you. Is there any more public comment? Okay, we have some more business to get through. Okay, resolutions for transfer. Can you look up the resolution?
Let me just use them.
Oh, oh, you want me to read the resolution?
Yeah. We're gonna pay the bills.
Okay, the town of Highland at the board meeting on January 14th did introduce and pass the following resolution, whereas modifications are required for the 2024 town of Highland highway budget. Now therefore be it resolved that the following budgetary transfers be made to the 2024 town of Highland budget from DA 960 appropriations, DA 5130.5 fuel in the amount of $19,000, DA 5142.4 snow removal in the amount of $21,856, DA 5142.4 snow removal in the amount of $4,775.02 to DA 960 appropriations, line item DA 5130.2 machinery and equipment in the amount of $40,856 and DA 5130.4 machinery continued $4,775.02 in the amount of total $45,631.02. And just for the record, this is for the generator. This includes the generator and the installation. So because we voted on the property acquisition, this is backed out and it will go into their, into the general budget to compensate for that because they were able to pay for it themselves. So we just have to actually pass this. So that's the 4775 because we already paid the 40,856. So that's the installation bill. Is this 4,775? Do I have a motion to approve this resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. If everybody would like to follow along, I don't know if you received the abstracts.
Yeah, the other.
The second resolution.
The Town of Highland Town Board meeting on January 14th, 2025 did introduce and pass the following resolution, whereas modifications are required in the 2024 general budget. Now therefore be resolved that the following budgetary transfers be made to the 2024 general budget from A 960 appropriations, A 1410.4 town clerk contractual 1,182.48. Line item A 1410.2 town clerk equipment for $250. Line item A 3620.1 safety and code enforcement personal services at 404.47. A 8010.1 zoning personal services for $730. A 9030.8 social security for $2,022.99. A 9060.8 health insurance for $1,896.75 to A 960 appropriations A 1410.1 town clerk personal services for $4,961.42. A 1640 or 1670.4 central mailing and printing, $149.95. A 1680.4 data processing contractual for $381.01. A 36020.4 safety code enforcement for $404.47. A 8160.4 refuge and garbage contractual for $450. And A 8510.4 community beautification for $138.84 for a grand total of $6,486.69. Do I have a motion to pass this resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Do I have a motion to pay highway abstract number 13-2024 claims 144 to 153 in the amount of $4,894.80? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any extensions? So moved. Do I have a motion to pay highway abstract number 1-2025 claims number 1 and 2 in the amount of $2,216.03? Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any extensions? So moved. Do I have a motion to pay general abstract number 13-2024 claims 331 to 359 in the amount of $53,040.35? Do I have a motion? Motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Do I have a motion to pay general abstract number 1-2025 claims 1 through 9 in the amount of $6,745.35? Do I have a motion?
Make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Do I have a motion to pay Eldridge Streetlights number 13-2024 claims 13 in the amount of $135.42? Do I have a motion?
Make that motion.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Not everybody at once. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Thank you very much to the public for the long meeting and attendance. Appreciate it. Thank you, Jessica, and everybody else.
It's all about.